the leg vise. You can see the 2.5 inch diameter screw. Along the bottom in the guide here, I have holes that are 1/2 inch apart, although I did drill a hole at 3/4 of an inch since 3/4 is such a common size. To use the leg vise, simply insert the pin into the proper hole in the guide. This piece of cedar that I'm going to plane is 3/4 of an inch thick. Then you can clamp it into the leg vise here. Since it's a longer board, you can use the sliding dead man with a hold fast, since the board isn't long enough to simply rest on the hold fast. You can clamp the board directly to the bench. Here is my leg vise, and this is the internal garter. This is what pulls the vise chop back with the screw. If you were to remove the internal garter, then the screw will move back without the chop. You can see here the groove in the screw. This is what the garter catches. When the garter is inserted into the mortise, it catches that groove and pulls the chop back with the screw. The front of the hub is what applies the pressure to the chop, not the internal garter. Here you can see a close-up of the holes in the guide for the leg vise. Every hole is 1/2 inch apart except for the one hole which is in between the two rows. That is set at a 3/4 inch distance, since 3/4 is such a common size. Here we're at the tail vise of my bench. You can see the bench dogs. These are spaced every 4 inches, except for right here and on the other side of the bench where the legs run beneath the bench dogs. The tail vise has a 2-inch diameter screw with 2 threads per inch. You can see it moves very quickly. Here is where the screw is. The face of the jaws of the vise have leather fitted to them, as well as the bench dogs. They have a piece of leather fitted on the front. They also have a hickory spring, which keeps the bench dog at whatever height you place it. You can clamp a piece of wood between the jaws if you have to do sawing. If you're, say, sawing a tendon, you can stick it in there, saw one side, just flip it over and saw the other. You can also use the bench dogs and do face grading planing. So you can see the vise tightens very nicely and it moves very quick because of the wooden screws. Here you can see a close-up of the wooden screw and the tail vise in action. You can see that the guide rod here has a sort of a sliding dovetail. On the front of the vise, you can see there are 2 sets of dovetails. There are a set of through dovetails here and half blinds here. And you can see the leather that is fitted onto the face of the jaws. Here you can see the underside of the tail vise. Here we have the garter, just like on the leg vise. This comes out and it catches the screw and pulls the vise back with it. You can see now how the screw is detached from the tail vise. Here you can see the groove in the screw that the garter goes into. Here we are at the shoulder vise of my bench. I have a walnut chop and a 2.5 inch diameter wooden screw. Because of the 2 threads per inch, you can see that the vise moves very quickly. It also grips very quick and tight. The front of the vise also has leather. You can see how quickly this vise clamps. You can see at about this point here, the vise touches the board, and all it takes is, and your board is secure enough for doing most woodworking. You can see this vise excels at clamping long and really wide boards. Since there is no screws or guides in the way, you can do that, unlike a leg vise or most standard metal face vices. You can see that this is perfect for cutting dovetails. Here you can see the chop of the shoulder vise, and you can see how it extends between the bench top and the top of the trestle. You can see here the other end of the walnut chop. Here is the chop of the shoulder vise. You can see how there's a sort of an external garter which pulls the chop back with the screw and which holds the screw to the chop. I've already loosened the 2 screws here, so you can see how that comes off. And you can see there the screw has a groove cut into it with a sort of a knob that goes inside a hole in the chop. The front of the knob applies pressure to the chop, and all the garter does is catch that groove, just like the leg vise and the tail vise, and pulls the chop back with it. Here on the corner of the shoulder vise, we have a large through dovetail which connects these 2 end caps. Here we have a nut which is attached to a threaded rod which runs through the bench here to the other side of the rod at this nut here. The threaded rod just helps hold the whole vise together since it goes through so much pressure. You would think there would be a concern about the wood movement of the bench top and the threaded rod holding it all together. I heard that it isn't a large issue. It tends to perhaps just indent into the wood slightly, but I suppose you could every month or so loosen the nuts and then re-tighten them to sort of release any tension in the bench. My bench top also has these 7 hold-fast holes, so if you ever have to do mortising, you can, or any other type of carving or whatever, sawing, you can quickly clamp a piece of wood to your workbench. You can always use just 1 hold-fast and clamp your piece, but it can easily still pivot. So if you have a pair of hold-fasts, you can clamp it at 2 points, then you have a firm grip so you can do your chisel work. To finish the bench, I simply applied 2 coats of boiled linseed oil. It's a very easy finish to apply. It doesn't dry very quick though, so in my garage right now it's a little cool out, so it's taken over a week to really finally cure. When I flattened my workbench, I used my joiner plane to traverse the entire top. Then I followed up with a light scraping. This left the surface of the bench just a little bit rough, which I like because it gives a little bit of grip between the workbench and the workpiece. If you were to apply a gloss finish, like a film finish, like varnish or polyurethane, wouldn't be quite as good for a workbench, since you will need to reflatten the top, probably yearly. When I weighed the bench, it came to approximately 250 plus pounds. So it doesn't move at all when you're doing heavy planing, but since the top is removable from the base, it will be much easier to move when it comes time. The entire workbench is constructed out of hard maple. The top has about a 10-inch wide piece and 8.5, and these two laminations here make up about 6 inches. And the sliding deadman and the chop are made from walnut, and the pegs for the draw boring and the mortise and tenons are white oak. I definitely look forward to working on this bench. Now I finally have a tail vise, a good shoulder vise so it doesn't keep breaking, and a leg vise as well with the whole sliding deadman and the holdfasts. Not so sure I look forward to putting the first chisel mark or saw cut into it though.